I got a lot of problems with what this guy is about to say, but let's go in order. And let me start by saying that I don't think you have to be a constitutionalist to be able to talk about the Supreme Court or the Constitution, but it helps to know the basics. This is what this guy has to say.
This is for you Kamala supporters out there. You do realize Roe versus Wade cannot be reenacted, right? The Supreme Court has spoken.
Number one, Roe v. Wade, that's a Supreme Court decision. Supreme Court decisions aren't enacted or reenacted. Those are laws. Second of all, to say that once they made a decision, a Supreme Court cannot go back and reverse a previous decision means not understanding or knowing anything about 235 years worth of Supreme Court decisions. In fact, you're talking about Roe v. Wade, but what I think you're talking about is the Dobbs decision, which is in fact an overruling, that's how it's called, of a previous Supreme Court decision, the Roe v. Wade decision. The Supreme Court can, and in fact, in the case of the Dobbs decision, should overrule its own previous decision. Then you tell us this.
Any lie that Kamala tells you where she's going to reintroduce it is just that. It's a lie. The Supreme Court made the ruling. It cannot be brought back.
And I'm not sure what you're talking about, but the Supreme Court can reverse its own decision, reestablishing essentially the Roe doctrine. But you know what also can happen? Congress can act. In the Dobbs decision, the Supreme Court simply said that there is no constitutional right to privacy when it comes to bodily autonomy, reversing what the Supreme Court had said in the 1970s. It didn't say that you cannot have at the federal level a law that guarantees the right and access to reproductive health care. Now, a law like that could be challenged all the way to the Supreme Court. Challengers could say that it violates the 10th Amendment, for example. But it is a relatively long shot, and it certainly has nothing to do with the Dobbs decision. So the Supreme Court can act by simply reversing the Dobbs decision, and federal lawmakers can act by recognizing a right to reproductive health care. And that's why, in my opinion, two things are important. Number one, don't take constitutional law advice from people that probably should brush up on constitutional law. And number two, come November, make sure you choose carefully, because the commander-in-chief you select is probably going to preside over the selection of a number of Supreme Court justices. And number two, choose a lawmaker that can truly represent your values on Capitol Hill. Somebody that can look you in the eyes and say, yep, I trust women when it comes to reproductive choices.